something happening here. What it is ain't exactly clear. There's a man with a gun over there, telling me I got to beware. I think it's time we stop, children. What's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. There's battle lines being drawn. Nobody's right if everybody's wrong. Young people speaking their minds are getting so much resistance from behind. Every time we stop, hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down.
In 1968, during the height of the Vietnam War, North Vietnamese forces had consolidated power and sought to end the war with one strong counteroffensive. They knew that if they inflicted enough casualties on the US, that public opinion would force the Americans to leave. The North Vietnamese concocted the Tet Offensive, a multi-pronged attack from the Ho Chi Minh Trail that would hopefully steamroll through South Vietnamese and American forces. On January 31st, during the Tet holiday, North Vietnamese and Viet Cong forces launched the Tet Offensive across all of South Vietnam. Using the Ho Chi Minh Trail, they were able to target cities across the entire South. The most important of these cities was the city of Huế, which had once been the capital of Vietnam. Communist forces launched an assault from the outskirts of the city against the South Vietnamese army to the west and the US Marines to the south. The Americans were quickly overrun and forced from the old city across the Perfume River to the main city, while the South Vietnamese were pushed back to the old city in the west. With the American forces pushed back, North Vietnamese troops moved into the old city. North Vietnamese and Viet Cong forces broke the citadel and assaulted the old city. They were extremely successful with their siege of the city. One place, however, where they failed to make significant gains was the Tay Loc airfield. With the failure of the communists to conquer the airfield and parts of the nearby citadel, there was still hope for the remaining ARVN forces and American forces. Eventually, the airfield had to be abandoned, although ARVN forces from a nearby base were called to help. They were unsuccessful in pushing back the communists, even with the use of tanks. Marines at a nearby airbase were also forcing resistance, but were ultimately able to counterattack. As they made their way from village to village, the Marines were dedicated to advancing from the south into the city. Marines, underestimating the size of the communist force, tried to penetrate the communist line with a push across the Perfume River, but to no avail. Due to heavy communist resistance in the city, U.S. commanders were forced to dedicate a force of tanks and armored vehicles to Huế. The original intention of U.S. commanders was to avoid using artillery or air support in order to spare civilians and historic features of the city. However, the stubborn resistance of the communists made these necessary. Despite this, street fighting was bitter, made worse by the inexperience of both U.S. Marines and ARVN forces in this kind of warfare. However, once they were accustomed to the urban combat of Huế, Marines and ARVN forces were able to recapture the main points of the city and were in full control of the Perfume River by February 10th. Once they crossed in the old city, Marine and ARVN forces slowly retook the Tay Loc airfield and the Imperial Palace. Although the communists still held the Gia Hoi district, they felt pressured from the southern forces that were pushing in around them. Due to this, they began to execute anyone accused of opposing their political agenda. Eventually, on the 2nd of March, the city was fully secured by U.S. and Arabian forces. The retaking of Hue spelled the end of the Tet Offensive for the North Vietnamese and Viet Cong. The battle cost 119 American lives and 363 South Vietnamese, along with the 8,000 that VC and NVA forces suffered. The Vietnam War today is remembered as the most unpopular war in American history. But just because this war may be unpopular does not mean that those who fought should not be honored for all their sacrifices.